Yes, you read that correctly. The hot girl summer just turned into the coldest winter Megan Thee Stallion has ever lived through, and the temperature is still dropping by the hour. With everything that has just spilled into the open and the chaos that the so-called insiders, the keyboard detectives, and the always online gossip generals are now feeding into the timeline at full speed, what I have to tell you about Megan and Klay Thompson before we even get into the deeper layers of this disaster. Well, the breakup is only the surface, and what is happening directly behind the curtain might be even messier than the fallout we are all watching live. Before we go 1 inch further, do me a small favor and tap that like button, hit subscribe, and push this video into the algorithm. And listen, since the Megan loyalists and the Klay defenders are about to be more triggered than they have ever been, because we are about to walk through the unflattering reality of what this entire relationship has quietly become, and we are about to dig into just how ugly this whole chapter is shaping up to look. Seriously, smash that like, because I really do not feel like waking up to 1,000 angry replies from people who never even watched past the first 30 seconds and have absolutely no clue what they are arguing about. And to cut all that drama off at the root and pull the classic Uno reverse on the entire comment section, what I am laying out today, well, I am simply the courier here. None of this is coming from me. None of this is being whispered out of some bitter blog cave or some random clout-chasing corner of the internet looking to drag a celebrity for a quick check, as the defenders love to claim. You already know exactly where the receipts are coming from. The follower trackers, the gossip pages with the screenshots ready to go, the courtside cameras, the leaked private stories, and the always reliable, always too eager keyboard sleuths who somehow timestamp everything down to the minute. So I have to do it, and I have to do it right now, just to lay the file flat on the table and prove that the entire energy around the Megan and Klay situation has gone completely sideways. So buckle in, because it is time to crack the folder open and let the tape roll. Picture the scene. A press conference. Lights bright, cameras rolling, microphones lined up like a firing squad. A reporter leans in and asks Klay Thompson, gently, almost respectfully, about how his relationship has shaped him as a man on and off the floor and where it is taking his career going forward. And Klay, the 4-time champion, the cold-blooded sniper, the man who built an entire career on staying unbothered, suddenly stiffens up. He pauses. He glances down. He shifts in his seat. And then he stumbles into a sentence that has now been replayed roughly 10 million times across every gossip page on the planet. Something about not even liking to address nothing. Something about it being hard for him to spit out. And then the kicker, the line that lit the fuse on this entire firestorm. My relationship with, like Megan Thee Stallion. I'm not going to talk about that. That was the moment. That was the spark. That single awkward, foot-in-mouth, painfully visible sentence is the exact second the entire internet realized something was very, very wrong in paradise. Because public figures do not freeze like that for no reason. They do not stutter the name of the woman they are supposedly in love with unless something behind the scenes has already cracked wide open. And from that one shaky 30-second clip, the dominoes started falling at a speed nobody was prepared for. And then, almost on cue, the internet did what the internet always does. It went hunting. Within hours, the so-called mystery woman, the one fans had been whispering about, the one nobody could place a face on, was no longer a mystery at all. Online sleuths, gossip accounts, follower trackers, and bored Twitter detectives moving in formation like a search party tracked her down piece by piece, screenshot by screenshot, until the woman quietly seated right between Megan and Klay in this entire meltdown was completely exposed for the world to see. No more guessing. No more vague hints. No more cute little blind items dropped on Instagram stories. She had a name, a face, a profile, and a history, and every single inch of it was about to become public property. And the reason behind all of it, when you actually hear it out loud, almost does not register as real on the first pass. Klay Thompson did not just walk away from a girlfriend. He did not just close the chapter on a relationship. He walked away from an entire constructed life. We are talking about a fully furnished house. A boat. Yes, an actual boat, the kind with her name carved into the side like some scene out of a romantic film. And then, the cherry on top of this very expensive cake, a $500,000 Bentley sitting in the driveway with a bow on it that he personally tied. All of it, every receipt, every key, every signed title, somehow connected back to Megan, and somehow every last piece of it got tossed into the wind over what people are now calling a WNBA connection. That is the part that is breaking everybody's brain. Not the breakup itself, but the math behind it. You do not buy a $500,000 car for a woman you are halfway in on. You do not name a boat after somebody who is just a phase. You do not bring a woman to Thanksgiving dinner with your mother and father if you are still keeping one foot out the door. So when people see that level of investment, that level of public, irreversible, signed and notarized commitment, and then watch it all evaporate in the span of a single press conference, the obvious question becomes, What on earth could possibly justify pulling the plug on something built that deep? And that question alone has the entire timeline locked in. But the part that has people refreshing every 15 minutes like it is a season finale, well, that is how brutally public this whole situation has become. This is not a breakup happening behind closed doors. This is not a quiet split announced through a publicist. This is a real-time, frame-by-frame, post-by-post collapse playing out on social media for everyone to watch, dissect, screenshot, and meme. And the deeper you scroll, the more uncomfortable the whole thing starts to feel. Because Megan is not just dealing with a heartbreak in the privacy of her own home. She is dealing with it while people who used to be in her circle, people who were never really in her circle, and people who have made it pretty obvious they were never on her side in the first place are diving into comment sections, dropping cryptic emojis, and reacting in real time like commentators at a boxing match. Some of it is delicate. Some of it is barely disguised. But either way, it is all unfolding in plain view while she is visibly going through the worst stretch of her recent personal life. And here is the wild part. At this stage, the rumored cheating is not even the headline anymore. The headline is how quickly this turned into pure spectator sport, with strangers refreshing their feeds for new updates and forming hot takes faster than Megan herself can probably process her own emotions. Which leads to a much bigger question, the kind of question that quietly drifts to the top of every comment section. Why is something this personal, this raw, this emotionally heavy being allowed to play out so publicly? Why not lock the doors, draw the curtains, take it offline, move it to a private group chat with the people who actually matter? Because the more details that leak, the more layers that pile on top of the original story. There are NBA connections. There are tangled friend group dynamics. There are receipts. There are screenshots. There are timestamps. And there is that very loud $500,000 Bentley parked dead center in the middle of all of it. And bit by bit, item by item, every hidden thread in this story is being yanked into the daylight whether anyone gave permission or not. As for Megan, the picture right now is shaky, and that is being generous. A fan account posted that Megan would not be performing as Satine in Moulin Rouge that night, with the update reportedly coming directly from staff at the venue. And let me tell you something. That kind of cancellation does not just appear out of thin air. That kind of cancellation is the kind of cancellation that whispers to anyone paying attention that something heavier is happening backstage that the public is not ready to be told yet. It raises the question of whether the weight of all this hit her harder than even she expected. Like the emotional dam finally split open and there simply was not enough time to compose herself before it spilled into the public square. And when you really sit with this version of Megan, this current version, the contrast hits different. Because this is not how she has handled hard moments in the past. There were no real-time emotional waves. There were no cryptic posts dropping every 2 hours. There were no public reactions that fans could line up on a timeline and dissect like crime scene evidence. This time feels deeper. This time feels like she actually believed in what she had. She made music about him. She let down walls she normally keeps welded shut. She, as Cardi B once put it, finally felt safe. And that is what makes the shift so painful to witness. Because this was not casual. This was not a phase. This was something she went all in on, and now it is being torn apart in front of everybody she has ever met online. And that is where the criticism quietly enters the room. Most celebrities at her level do not let things bleed out like this. Most of them go silent, move with surgery glove precision, leak select details through a trusted blog, fire up a burner account, or vanish entirely until the news cycle has chewed through something else. There is a way to communicate everything you need the public to know without dragging yourself directly into the eye of the hurricane. But Megan, intentionally or not, has chosen the opposite path, and the result is a situation playing out in full sunlight, with reactions firing off from every direction. One reaction that genuinely stopped people mid-scroll was Glorilla, a woman with a famously complicated history with Megan, casually dropping crying laughing emojis while the whole thing was actively burning down. That single, almost throwaway reaction added another layer of awkwardness, another layer of exposure, another layer that proved to everyone watching just how cracked open and unguarded this whole situation has become. And once something this private goes this public, it stops being a story about two people. Suddenly, every person who ever shared a green room with Megan, every person who ever played a pickup game with Klay, every person who ever followed either of them on Instagram has an opinion they feel entitled to share. Some come bearing support. Some come bearing silent shade. And the rest, the largest group by far, just sit on the sidelines treating it like premium streaming content. The whole thing balloons way beyond the relationship itself. Now there are too many eyes on Megan, too many narratives forming at the same time, too many people ready to twist a quote, exaggerated detail, or simply enjoy the chaos because it gives them something to scroll through during their lunch break. And then comes the layer of irony that nobody can pretend not to see. Glorilla, the same woman lobbing those laughing emojis into the situation, has herself been romantically linked to someone in the NBA universe. So the woman cackling at Megan's misfortune is sitting in a glass house only a few inches thinner than Megan's. That detail did not slip past the timeline. Not even close. And it adds yet another flavor to how the public is digesting all of this. Situations like this do not stay one-sided for long. The same finger pointing today flips back around tomorrow once the spotlight shifts, and history shows the spotlight always shifts. And when the lens drifts back to Klay, people keep returning to the same observation. He did not just talk a good game. He backed everything he set up with receipts so visible you could see them from outer space. The Bentley alone turned what could have been seen as a sweet seasonal romance into something the public could literally point at, photograph, and verify. And for anyone who somehow missed the prologue of this love story, this was never a casual situation. Klay did not move with one foot out the door. He did not show up halfway. He went absolutely all in from day one. One fan online summed it up beautifully when they said he showed up with the entire arsenal, not pieces of it. There was the house. There was the Bentley. There was the boat with her name on it. There was the family integration. His mother. His father. Both of them woven into the relationship like Megan had already been written into the family tree. The flowers were a constant. Every time they reunited, fresh flowers. He named a yacht after her. Yacht. Not a paddle boat. A yacht. That kind of effort does not look like a man passing through. That kind of effort looks like a man building a future, brick by brick, in front of the entire world. And the effort was never one-sided either. Megan was matching it stride for stride and, in some moments, outpacing him entirely. She reportedly attended somewhere around 15 of his games in a single season, which, when you actually pause to think about it, is wild. She is not exactly a woman with free Tuesdays. She is one of the busiest entertainers in the entire industry. And still, she carved out the schedule, made the flights, sat courtside, smiled for the cameras, hugged his mother, blended into his world like she had been there all along. It was not just a photo opportunity. It was not a one-off appearance for the gossip blogs. It was consistent. It was repeated. It was undeniable. She publicly said, in her own words, that she had never dated somebody so kind, that this was the first time she had ever been with a person who was genuinely, deeply, structurally a nice human being, that he made her genuinely happy, that she had simply never dated anyone like him before. Coming from Megan, given everything she has been through, given the painful history of the men she has dated, that statement carries an unbelievable amount of weight. That was not a soundbite. That was a confession. Meanwhile, on Klay's side, the spending kept escalating like a stock market chart on a good day. A $350,000 watch. Jewelry. Birthdays celebrated like coronations. The full luxury experience, executed without flinching. From the outside, both of them looked like locked-in partners, fully bought in, planning long-term, possibly already discussing rings in private. That is exactly what makes the sudden 180 so disorienting. One day the picture is solid, structured, almost storybook predictable in the best possible way. The next day the rug yanks itself out, Klay steps back, decides he is no longer interested in the arrangement, and the rest of us are left scrolling through 1,000 contradictory takes trying to figure out how a relationship that looked that grounded fell apart that fast. It is the kind of pivot that does not come with a clean explanation, which is precisely why the speculation engine is running at maximum throttle. And the smaller, more domestic details only make the whole thing weirder. There were jokes circulating online about Megan cooking for Klay's family during Thanksgiving, fully stepping into that almost matriarchal partner role, the kind of role you do not just walk into for fun. Those little moments painted a picture of something stable, something rooted, something that had clearly moved past the surface stage. Which loops everyone back to the same loud, blinking question. What in the world could possibly make a man walk away from all of that? And this, right here, is exactly where the internet stopped sitting on the bench and started connecting dots like a war room. Names started flying around almost the second Klay's awkward press conference clip went viral. And one name in particular kept floating to the top of the pile no matter how many other names tried to crowd it out. According to the unanimous chorus of online detectives, this entire detonation may trace back to a WNBA player. The name being whispered, then said out loud, then chanted across every gossip blog on the planet is Lexie Brown. Yes, Lexie. Most people just call her Lexie now. And yes, before anybody asks, she is widely considered an extremely attractive woman. That part is not even controversial. That part is settled science. But the question that keeps echoing is not about her looks. The question is, why her? Why is her name suddenly stapled to the funeral of one of the most public celebrity relationships of the year? What exactly is the thread that ties her to the implosion between Megan and Klay in the first place? And the answer, predictably, is buried in the receipts. Because none of this was random shotgun guessing. All of it traces back to one very precise piece of online activity that surfaced right before the entire situation began bleeding into public view. Here is the detail that pulled every set of eyes in. There is an NBA follow tracker page, a small but obsessively monitored account whose entire job is to log every flick of the follow button by NBA players on social media. And that account, coldly and without any commentary, posted something that shifted the energy. According to them, Klay Thompson did not follow any new accounts that day. But he did unfollow exactly one. Lexie Brown. They even attached a clean direct link to her profile in the post like a footnote in a court document. And the timing of it, well, the timing was the part that stopped everybody dead in their scroll. April 25, 2026. 4:45 in the afternoon. Right before the breakup officially seeped into the public bloodstream. For anybody paying close attention, that was not a coincidence. That was a fingerprint. That single time-stamped move did not answer questions. It detonated brand new ones, and it gave the internet a very specific, very clickable target to chase as the rest of the story slowly unspooled. Now, to play this fair, because I am not in the business of dragging an entire human being into a scandal she may have nothing to do with, nobody actually knows what is going on between Klay and Lexie. There is no confirmed timeline. There is no leaked video. There is no kissing photo from a yacht in Mykonos. There is no clean, courtroom-ready evidence physically tying them to each other in any direct romantic capacity. But when the internet stacks the timing of an unfollow, the awkwardness of a press conference, and the immediate emotional collapse of a global superstar all into one neat little column, people are going to fill in the gaps on their own. That is just the gravitational law of social media. You do not need proof. You need pattern. And the pattern was deafening. At the same time, Megan's online behavior gave off a completely different kind of signal. The way she was posting. The speed with which screenshots were ricocheting between gossip outlets. How quickly the temperature kept rising. All of it suggested she was discovering things in real time, the same way the rest of us were. It did not feel pre-planned. It did not feel media-trained. It did not feel like a slow drip rollout coordinated with a publicist. It felt like a woman finding out, on the same Tuesday afternoon as everybody else, that the floor underneath her had quietly been removed. And that is exactly what makes this situation stand apart from the usual celebrity playbook. There was no controlled rollout. No pre-approved statement to People magazine. No strategically dropped quote in a podcast interview. Everything came pouring out at once, raw, uncut, and unfiltered. Which is why a lot of people genuinely believe Megan made no attempt to muzzle herself this time. She let it run. Even knowing the consequences. Even knowing the army of cameras pointed at her front door. And then there is the question that keeps creeping back into every comment section like a recurring nightmare. What did Klay's family actually know, and at what point did they know it? People keep returning to that one because of how deeply integrated the entire situation appeared to be on the surface. His mother. His father. Holiday meals. Family group photos. If he was already moving differently in private, were they aware? Were they complicit in keeping the picture pretty for the cameras? Were they blindsided like everyone else? Nobody has answers. But everybody has theories. On top of all of that, there has been chatter about Megan's recent behavior, with some claiming it feels different from how she has historically carried herself in public. None of that is confirmed. Most of it is amateur armchair psychology being typed out by strangers. But people are still tying it to moments like the cancelled Moulin Rouge performance, attempting to assemble a bigger picture from the outside in. Maybe the hospital narrative did not explain everything. Maybe it was never supposed to. Maybe Megan is just dealing with this the only way she knows how at the moment. Or maybe the internet is layering complexity onto something that is, at the core, painfully simple. When you actually look at her right now, she comes across as authentically heartbroken. Which does not automatically mean she is sliding back into older patterns or undoing the considerable work she has done on herself. She has been candid about how much real internal work she has invested in healing, and writing that off just because the optics are messy at the moment would be cheap. A blow this severe, especially after a relationship this serious, is enough to rattle anyone. And when you really break the situation down to its bones, there was nothing casual about what Megan and Klay had built. This was not a temporary phase between two famous people who happened to find each other for a few flashy red carpet moments. This was a man buying his girlfriend a Bentley. This was a yacht with her name on it. This was an entire family circle held open for her to walk into. This was Megan sitting beside his mother at NBA games like the seat had her name etched into it. That kind of integration does not happen in something light or undefined. That kind of integration looks like a foundation being poured for a future. Which is precisely why the collapse feels so seismic. When something built that deep cracks in public, it does not crack quietly. It floods. Of course, the internet had its take on standby before the press conference clip even finished buffering. People did not hesitate. They did not wait for confirmation. They poured in with opinions, jokes, theories, and commentary from every conceivable angle. One particular reaction that landed harder than most came from Angela Rockford, who fired off a comment along the lines of laughing out loud at the idea of admitting you are non-monogamous only after buying the boat, the house, the cars, and the chains, but hey, better late than never. That single comment captured the temperature of how a portion of the audience is interpreting all of this. Serious, life-altering details are being filtered through a meme machine and turned into one-liners. And for the people still trying to map out the full chronology, another tiny but explosive detail kept the conversation breathing. Klay actually ended up following the same woman back at some point, which only yanked more attention onto her and dumped fresh fuel onto the speculation already raging across the timeline. A follow. An unfollow. A refollow. To anybody watching in real time, that was a story arc compressed into 3 social media taps. Then came the part that really tipped this from gossip into full-blown drama. A post started circulating on Twitter, then mysteriously vanished, which obviously only made everyone pay closer attention. Before it got nuked, somebody claimed that messages had been shared inside a private close friend's story, allegedly belonging to Lexie, the very woman people were already eyeballing as the mystery party in this entire saga. According to that vanished post, those messages reportedly contained conversations suggesting that Klay had told her his relationship with Megan was, more or less, a performance for social media. A facade. A staged production. That is a violently heavy claim to throw into the bonfire, especially with no formal verification, but the second it dropped, it cranked the tension in this story up another full octave. At the exact same time, people were combing through the social media activity of both Klay and Lexie like forensic investigators. Somebody noticed that Klay and Lexie had recently followed each other, which had already triggered some quiet whispering. Then not long after, he unfollowed her. Then allegedly refollowed. That kind of finger choreography on a follow button does not look casual. It looks deliberate. It looks like somebody trying to clean up a digital footprint mid-drama. And while none of it constitutes proof in any traditional sense of the word, the choreography felt too specific, too synchronized, too tidy to ignore. It was the digital equivalent of someone wiping down a doorknob. Now, to keep the conversation grounded, none of these breadcrumbs individually confirms anything. Each one, taken in isolation, could have a perfectly mundane explanation. Klay could have unfollowed Lexie because he was cleaning up his account. The close friend's story screenshot could be a complete fabrication. The refollow could have been a fat finger accident. People misclick things. Public figures unfollow people every day. None of this on its own equals guilt. But when you stack the timing, the rumors, the whispers, the press conference fumble, the Bentley, the canceled performance, the Glorilla emojis, the Angela Rockford joke, and the social media tap dance all on top of each other, the average viewer is going to walk away convinced something more is happening behind the scenes than what is being officially shown. The recurring theme floating through every comment section is the same. There is another woman somewhere in this picture, even if nobody has the complete frame yet. And then, like clockwork, older tweets started clawing their way back to the surface, adding an unexpected curveball to an already crowded mess. Back in July of 2025, somebody named Yvonne posted a public apology aimed at Klay, and then later joked about taking that apology back. On its own, completely disconnected from the current situation, that does not necessarily mean anything. But that has not stopped the timeline from yanking it into the conversation and welding it onto the master theory. Right now, anything even remotely tabloid-coded is being autopsied, time-stamped, and slapped onto the case board, whether it actually fits or not. And even with the swirling mass of speculation hovering over every post, the emotional core of this story still feels brutally heavy. Megan comes across as genuinely, visibly, deeply hurt. And the response she has been receiving online has not exactly been gentle. A lot of people are laughing. A lot of people are clipping it for content. A lot of people are turning her pain into a comedy routine. But at the dead center of all of this is a woman who clearly believed she had something real, something safe, something worth letting her guard down for. From the outside, Klay seemed to be doing every single thing right. He showed up. He was present. He made his investment visible to anybody with eyes. Which is exactly the part that is making people pause. The criticism is not about him being quiet or low-key. The criticism is about the contrast people now suspect they are seeing. Looking thoughtful and committed in public while reportedly moving very differently in private creates a gap. And that gap is exactly the kind of gap an audience will latch onto and refuse to let go of. That contrast is what is driving the ferocity of the public reaction, because it makes the situation feel more layered, more complicated, and more morally tangled than it first appeared. And now, finally, you are starting to understand why people are dragging Klay the way they are. From the outside, he played the part of the calm, soft-spoken, intentional partner. The grounded one. The one who seemed steady, deliberate, and locked in. He folded her into his family. He made the entire arrangement look airtight. He gave off the energy of a man who knew exactly what he was doing and exactly who he was doing it with. But to then turn around in a press conference and essentially question whether he was ever actually ready for that level of commitment makes the entire arc feel jarringly inconsistent. That kind of tonal whiplash throws people off balance, because it carves a visible canyon between what was being shown to the public and what may have been quietly happening in private. At the same time, there is a quieter group online trying to view this from the opposite angle. Some of them are pointing out that, at minimum, Klay said something before things drifted into even deeper waters. Before a marriage. Before a child. Before the kind of legal entanglement that makes an exit 10 times messier. And while there is a kernel of truth in that take, it does not erase the tonnage of everything that already happened, especially if, as Megan has implied, trust had already been fractured earlier in the relationship. Saying you are not ready for monogamy after you have already crossed the trust line does not land the same way. Instead of providing closure, it cracks the door open for new questions about what was actually happening the entire time the public was being sold the romance highlight reel. And that is precisely why nobody can pull their eyes off this story. It contains every ingredient the modern internet feeds on. Emotion, confusion, public reaction, mystery woman, receipts, timing, money, fame, sport, music, family, a canceled performance, a vanishing tweet, a time-stamped unfollow. A timeline that still has missing puzzle pieces. New information keeps surfacing. New angles keep getting added. And it does not feel, even now, like the full story has been told. People are still connecting dots, still drawing red strings between bulletin board photos, and until anybody drops verifiable confirmation, the speculation engine is not slowing down for a single second. And let me say one more thing before we close this out, because I think it needs to be said out loud. This story is not just about Megan and Klay. This story is about how modern celebrity relationships are quietly being mutated by the always-on, always recording, always reacting culture we have all collectively built. There used to be a buffer, a delay, a grace period between an event happening and the public learning about it. That buffer is gone. Now, the second a relationship cracks, the crack is photographed, captioned, monetized, and weaponized within minutes. Now, the people who used to be allowed to grieve in private have to grieve while a million strangers refresh their feeds for the next fragment. And the people who used to be allowed to mess up in private have their messes preserved in 4K and reposted into every corner of the internet for the rest of time. Megan and Klay are not just a couple in crisis. They are a case study. A live demonstration of what happens when love, fame, money, sport, music, and the internet all collide in the same room at the same time. And the conclusion is uncomfortable. Because nobody, no matter how famous, no matter how wealthy, no matter how protected, gets to break up quietly anymore. So where does this leave us? Megan, somewhere, is processing the most public heartbreak of her career. Klay, somewhere, is trying to compartmentalize it long enough to keep playing professional basketball at the highest level. Lexie, somewhere, is presumably watching her notifications spiral out of orbit through no choice of her own. Glorilla is laughing. Angela Rockford is tweeting. The follow trackers are watching. The blogs are blogging. And the rest of us are sitting on our phones, 200 miles deep into a comment section, debating the integrity of strangers we will never meet. This is hip-hop adjacent celebrity culture in 2026. Whether you love it or hate it, this is the era. And whether or not Megan and Klay ever address this in their own words, at their own pace, on their own platform, the public has already written the headlines for them. The only thing left to learn is whose version of the story actually survives. Because here is the inconvenient truth. Right now, there is no clean villain in this story. There is a man who loved loudly and then stepped back without warning. There is a woman who let her guard down for the first time in years and got caught in the worst possible exit. There is a third party whose name is being chained to a scandal she may or may not have actually had any meaningful role in. And there is an audience, all of us, watching it unfold in real time and forming opinions at lightning speed based on screenshots that may or may not be accurate. This is not justice. This is not closure. This is not even gossip, really. This is something newer. This is mass real-time emotional surveillance, and we are all complicit in it whether we want to admit it or not. And the genuinely terrifying part is that we are nowhere near the end of this story. There will be more leaks. There will be more cryptic Instagram posts. There will be more screenshots from disappearing close friends' stories. There will be more fan accounts decoding the symbolism of the next outfit Megan wears in public. There will be more press conferences where Klay either says nothing or says too much. There will be more receipts. There will be more rumors. There will be more denials. There will be more everything. Because the story has gravity now, and a story with gravity does not stop spinning until something even bigger pulls the audience away. And right now, nothing bigger is on the horizon. What happens next is anybody's guess, but if patterns hold, here is the rough forecast. Megan will eventually channel this into music because that is what she does. Klay will likely stay silent for as long as humanly possible, because that is what he does. Lexie will either address it directly or vanish into the protective fog of ignoring her notifications. Glorilla will keep posting. The blogs will keep blogging. And one day, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 years, somebody will drop an interview, a song lyric, a candid quote, or a memoir excerpt that reframes this entire saga in a way none of us currently see coming. That is how these stories always end. Not with a clean answer. With a slow rewriting. And by the time the rewrite arrives, half the audience will have moved on to the next viral celebrity unraveling and forgotten the specifics of this one entirely. If there is any kind of lesson buried in the wreckage of all this, and I am not even fully convinced there is, it is probably the oldest lesson in the book. Public love affairs are gambles. The brighter the spotlight, the harsher the shadows. The more the relationship gets pushed into the public bloodstream, the more permanently every flaw, every fight, every stumble, every late-night tweet gets archived for strangers to scroll through later. Megan knew that risk. Klay knew that risk. Lexie, fairly or unfairly, has been pulled into that risk. And the rest of us, sitting here forming theories from outside, knew the risk too, even if we keep pretending we are just innocent observers minding our own business. And maybe that is the part nobody wants to admit out loud. We are not just watching this story. We are feeding it. Every share, every retweet, every screenshot saved to a camera roll, every comment dropped at 3 in the morning is gasoline being thrown onto a fire that nobody actually wants to put out, because the fire is what keeps the timeline interesting. So before anyone scolds Megan for being too public or scolds Klay for being too cold or scolds Lexie for simply existing, maybe it is worth pausing and asking who the audience really is in this whole production, because the audience is staring back at the screen right now, and the audience has been part of the cast since the beginning. So with all of that on the table, drop your honest take in the comments. Tell me what you actually believe is happening here. Are you Team Megan, Team Klay, Team Mind Your Business, or Team I Just Want to Watch It Burn? Do you think the WNBA connection is the real story, or do you think the timeline still has bigger landmines waiting to detonate? Do you think Klay's awkward press conference moment was guilt, exhaustion, or just bad media training? Do you think Megan should pull back from social media until the dust settles, or do you think her honesty is exactly what makes her relatable? Tell me. I read the comments. I actually do. And if you made it this far in the video, you are an absolute legend, and I appreciate every single second you spent here. Do me one last favor before you bounce. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe. Turn the bell on so you do not miss the next chapter, because trust me, this is not the last update you are going to need on this story. New details are leaking by the hour, and we are going to be right back here breaking them down the second they surface. Until then, stay tuned, stay sharp, stay petty, and remember that on this side of the internet we read between every line, decode every emoji, and never, ever take a quiet weekend off, because by the time you wake up tomorrow, there is going to be another piece of this puzzle waiting to be cracked open, another vanished tweet to dissect, another timestamped follow to investigate, another comment section to refresh, and we are going to be right back here, dead center in the chaos, breaking it down for you in real time exactly the way we just did today. So save this channel, share this video with the one friend who is even more invested in this drama than you are, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace. Stay locked in. Because in this new era of celebrity drama, the credits never really roll, the cameras never really cut, and the audience never truly leaves the room.